Welcome to Difference Talks, the show that focuses on one word, differentiation, and how it is more important today than ever to discover what makes your brand unique and celebrate it with the most important people, your team.
In each episode, we meet people who've had the courage to stand up and stand out, sometimes against great odds. In a world of copies, conformity, and commodities, uniqueness speaks volumes. Difference Talks.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Difference Talks. I am Barry LeBove. I am the founder and CEO of LeBove Marketing, Communications, and Training. I am also the author of The Power of Differentiation. Today, one of my dearest friends is joining me. His name is Don Hunter, and I want to give you an introduction to Don, but he'll do far more than me. You're going to meet somebody who has been a leader in a very, very difficult industry, and that is the industry of the private club, where you're dealing with very discerning customers or members of private clubs nationwide. You're dealing with designers of golf courses, you're dealing with suppliers, you're dealing with staff that has to relate to those individuals, and that staff has to feel excited about it. It is a very demanding position that Don's in, and Don has not just gotten through it, he has excelled throughout the nation. And when he runs down some of the amazing places that he has been able to lead, it's pretty astounding. And right now, and I'm not going to divulge where he's at right now, but he will. But I call it Fantasy Island. He's at a place that I don't even understand. I do hope someday he invites me to Fantasy Island, but Don literally is in charge of Fantasy Island. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to receive this man and listen to what he says today. Remember, our goal is to inspire 1 million people with the message from our podcast and our book, and I guarantee many of us will be inspired today. So, Don Hunter, tell us a little bit about yourself, including how you got to where you are today. So, Donnie, over to you.
Yeah, I started out in Alabama. I worked for Vestavia Country Club, and Stu helped me get placed at PGA National, and then from PGA National, I got recruited by Jim Kelly, who was the founder of Sycamore, and that was a chance to go back home to Indiana. And then from there, I was recruited by Chapel Hill Country Club, which is right by UNC. That was a lot of fun. And then from there, Quail Creek in Naples, Florida. A great resort community, high end. And from there, I got recruited to the Country Club in North Carolina, which is a great championship level course. And from there, I wound up here on Haig Point. Haig Point is on Defusky Island. We can see Hilton Head, but all the noise and craziness from the real world is over there. And over here, we're golf carts only, and we just got the only noise I hear most days is birds and the occasional praise from our members. So it's pretty cool.
Well, and you might share that you cannot drive to Haig Point. You cannot drive there.
The only vehicles here would be essential vehicles like ambulance, which barely ever moves, and a few construction vehicles as a house is being built. But on the day-to-day, everybody is with an electric golf cart, and most houses have access to the beach. It's a very unique atmosphere. I would say don't come if you don't want to live here, because you fall in love really quick.
You and I were talking, and when my band was in existence, I used to have hair and I was in a rock band, and we sold well under 1 million copies of our music. But way back, my band backed up John Cougar Mellencamp. Okay, so that was maybe my claim to fame as a live musician, let's say. Well, you say that Mellencamp is walking the island there, right? You see him there?
Yeah, John Mellencamp has a house on The other side of the island is called Bloody Point. It's another smaller private community. And he's got a beautiful home there that was on Architectural Digest. It's just a beautiful work of art. And he's here a lot in the spring and in the fall.
I think one thing to share with the audience that's interesting too is the idea of a country club sounds very snooty, to me, because I grew up as definitely a middle class person, certainly not upper class, had no private club experience growing up. And when I met Don, what really struck me, and we'll share more of this as we go through this today, but is the humility and the receptiveness that Don brings when he is with his staff, as well as with the members of the club. So it's not one of these things where you have this person who is talking down to others and who doesn't get his hands dirty. This is the opposite with you, Don. And I think you've shown that to your leadership group there. You've shown that to your staff, and I think they embody that. So what happens is you have this amazing golf course, let's say, amazing facility, and it's very warm and friendly, which is a great combination. So I give you lots of credit for that. I want you to share, we call this the power of differentiation segment. I want you to share one situation where you tackled something that was a challenge, all right? Not something where the wind's behind you and it's easy, something where you tackled a challenge that required you to engage the people on the staff, to win their hearts and minds, to ultimately then triumph. Can you share something like that that really moves you and probably will move our audience?
When you've got a membership of 400 or 500 people that know that the club's in financial straits, to get them to stop pointing fingers at one another and start thinking progressively enough to find a way out without discounting the product so deeply that it causes other problems. That's the hardest thing to do. And I've replicated that over and over again in lessons I learned at Sycamore about the value of the product and the importance of selling what's different to the members, the existing members and future members, is hugely important. But we were able to do that at Chapel Hill. That club is amazing. They have 1,000 kids under the age of 16 that young families that are connected to the club. And so that pool was like, the snack bar was like McDonald's. I think it does more than McDonald's. To do that over and over again, you always said, if you find something that you're good at, if you could just replicate it faster and more often, then you'll be more successful. Just figure out what you do well and do it over and over again faster to be more profitable. And we were able to do that there and grow that young family membership. And every club that I've worked at has had a very unique difference. And none of them have been the same at all. It seems like like-minded people or like-conditioned people wind up gravitating to one place or another. Leveraging that through my career and getting the clubs to understand that sameness is not a product, that sameness is a commodity, has been an important part of success in this industry for me.
Don, if we can dig a little deeper on that, can you share what you went through? So sometimes we look at somebody and they're successful and they go, wow, they walked into this, it was really terrible. And then, wow, it turned out great. Wow, that guy's great. And we move on. But what about the restless nights? What about the pushback from members who were smart individuals? What about the staff having doubts? Did you deal with any of that?
Oh yeah, of course. So almost every club I've ever gone to, the first thing I do is ask every key person, key employee, key volunteer, key naysayers. In my industry, we call them the naysayers, the people who don't run for the board or are unelectable, but they're very, very loud and they sound like everybody. Sit down with all of them, and the first question I ask them is, are our best days ahead of us or behind us? And a lot of them, in the beginning of a process, will say, our best days are behind us, and I'm just trying to hang on to what I love, and but I know I'm gonna have to let it go one day. And that's that. I think if they say it out loud, then they want to challenge it more. And really, the sleepless nights and the hard part of this turnaround part in this industry is to get them to believe that the thing they fell in love with still exists and can grow. But they have to decide to do it. And so I've been very lucky. Your help has helped me. I know I've called you at 10 o'clock at night before and said, well, here's what I'm dealing with. But really, to get them to see what the other side would look like and to visualize better days is a process and takes a little bit of time. But then once you start showing them a little bit of success, then they start piling in the bus, and off we go. And so we're in that process right now here at Haig Point, and I think it's going really well because it's an easy thing to believe in. It's a very unique property, and I think we're getting excited about our future now.
What's the key that you have found when you've worked with your staff? Because remember, here's something, everybody, that's really interesting, I find, with the private club industry, but it's also with all premium brands. And that is often the person who represents that brand, who is the customer service person, is the waiter, is the salesperson, is the service person for that premium brand. Let's think about, they cannot afford that brand. They could not afford to be here. So what's very, very, very common in these situations is that individual kind of looks at those customers like they're objects. They're not humans. It's like, boy. And your job, Don, has been to humanize that member. In your business, the customer is the member, that member in the eyes and the hearts of your staff. What have you done to do that? Because it has worked. I've seen the results.
I tell a story to almost every person that gets hired at my clubs, and I don't know if it's crazy or not, but they all have to hear it, and they make fun of me about it. But I tell them the story about when I was growing up. I always had someone else's clothes as a kid. So hand-me-down jeans from my nephew, hand-me-down shoes. They were not nice shoes. They were not good shoes. But they were shoes. They fit because they fit somebody else. They were broken. And, kids were mean when I was a kid, and I think kids are still mean today. And they would make fun of my clothes and my shoes. And I ask my staff, who most of them come from very similar circumstances, or at least they know a family member that did, if they felt that way as a kid. And I felt that way. And then I asked them, hey, when did you remember the first time you started making some disposable money where you could go buy anything you want? And they tell me, and mine was, my story is, I lived at the end of a runway, so we weren't that rich. And on the other side of this little private airfield was a imperfect store where they sold irregulars, but they had Converse. And I remember I cut a bunch of yards, And I made enough money to walk across that airport. And I remember every step to buy those Converse. I remember I could draw a picture of the lady who helped me size shoes for the first time because I'd never had a brand new pair of shoes. And I remember that entire uh, customer service moment. And it could have gone bad, and it didn't. It went great. It's a memory that I'll have the rest of my life. And the reason it's a memory I'll have the rest of my life is because that was the moment in my life where I knew that I could take care of myself and I could have what I needed to have. I could create that myself. And I didn't cut those yards just to make money. I cut those yards to take control of my life and to feel good about myself. Well, that's what we sell in the club industry. It's a validation of years of hard work. My members are mostly not people who grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth. These are entrepreneurs that took nothing and made something out of it. And at the end of a long career, you need to buy things that are more expensive over time to validate that you're okay. And my employees, the reason it's warm and friendly in the places that I work is they understand that validation is the business, and the hot dog or the cup of coffee that you get at the turn is just an amenity to that emotional connection that my employees have with the staff. And when they understand that, they also understand that they're on that journey themselves. And that working at the club is a step towards taking better care of self. I think it's important, and it seems to work for me. But I get a lot of Converse on Christmas as gifts, and so maybe it's meaningful, maybe it's not. But that's my technique, and it seems to work.
I think that's brilliant. When we come back, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that will dig even deeper. Thank you, Don Hunter.
You're listening to the Difference Talks podcast. Difference Talks is brought to you by LaBeouf Marketing Communications and Training. LaBeouf focuses on one word: differentiation.
In fact, we wrote the book on it called The Power of Differentiation. Our goal is to inspire 1 million people with this message, helping brands win hearts, minds, and market share.
Discover more at LaBeouf.com.
All right, we are back with Don Hunter. Again, tremendous, heartfelt, inspiring testimony on what he has done. I think it's tremendous. Don, I got a couple of questions for you. So as much as you've been speaking your heart, we're going to dig a little deeper in here because it's all about the differentiation, and that's what you're doing. So we've talked about what you're doing and how you're helping people and how you're identifying the differentiation at each individual club you're at, because they're not all the same. So at one club, it had a wonderful Jack Nicklaus designed course. That was the course that you and I shared. But then there's another club where it's on an island. All right. It's on an island. Okay. Completely different, unique distinctiveness between the two of them. So I'm going to ask you, what is your differentiation? You personally, what is it?
That's a hard question, but I think that what's different for me is in my industry, it's not a very entrepreneurial industry. And I learned early on with the Sycamore experience that if I was going to be successful working my way up in an industry that is full of a bunch of Cornell grads, that I'm going to have to bootstrap that myself and be entrepreneurial. And at Sycamore, we had 18 guys that had all pretty much bootstrapped industry. We had a Fortune 100, 500, I don't know, Fortune 500 company that started, I think, at a bar and turned into the powerhouse steel industry. And your story is amazing. Coming from music and then working with some of the largest companies in the world. What I learned from those 18 fellows was how to be entrepreneurial and the importance of entrepreneurship in industry. So I think of my clubs not as something that my members own, even though that's what they are. I think of it as if I had to go home and explain to my kids why we could or could not afford groceries based on the success of my business. How would I make a decision? And in my industry, most managers are waiting for boards to make decisions. And I think what's different about me is I don't. I go into board meetings with opinions, with thought processes and concepts, and I'm certainly willing to be overruled in those. But on a day-to-day basis, month-to-month business, I'm teaching my teams and driving myself in this industry where opinions are kept quiet. I'm the loud person in the room, but respectful, and make sure that I have a concept when I go into the room.
Here's a question for you. For you ask your employees, are our best days ahead of us or behind us? Okay, genius idea. I hope everybody in the audience grabs that, steals it, runs with it. I'm asking you this question. For you, Don Hunter, what is your best day? What is a best day? And how we describe it is you're working, you did what you did. You come home, and whether it's Rose and the girls or whether you're just home alone, but you are energized. You feel like, oh my gosh, this is why I do what I do. What is that best day for you?
Yeah, this career has a lot of those. That there's good days and bad days. The best days in this career is when a dream comes together. I've been lucky enough to run 9 national championships. My first one was at Sycamore Hills Golf Club with Tim Frazier called me and said, "Hey, what do you think? Could we pull off a USGA championship?" And we reached out and we made an invitation, and they accepted, and they gave us really a championship that was so exciting for most clubs that they don't even do it anymore. But it was my first championship, and I remember almost every moment of it. You're up almost 24 hours a day putting these things on, and at the end, someone's going to hand a title and a trophy that will last forever to somebody who has invested a tremendous amount of their life into winning something. And to see somebody succeed like that and know that all the preparation it took to prove that player was the best player on that golf course that day has always been among my top best days. But as I've gone through the career, best days are also when you do a $3 million room renovation and you tell the board, "Hey, this is going to double our business. I promise it's going to double our business if we just invest this money and fix this room up." And when it's done, and the bride starts signing up for weddings, and corporations start signing up for events, and you throw a big party for the members and say, hey, this is what we've done. It looks great. We've shown it to people and they're signing up. And everybody raises a glass of champagne. It's those finales that just mean the world to me. And it validates what I do. It validates what my team does, and it helps keep this industry going, which is pretty cool.
You know, one thing, and you've really inspired me on this. You talked about, do you believe your best days are ahead of you or behind you? When we took over Sycamore together, Don and myself, and a gentleman named Maury Sanderson, and another gentleman, Keith Bussey, and a number of other folks, the Rifkin family, and a number of others. We had fallen out of the top 100 golf courses in the nation. There's a designation for that. And our course had been in it. And I remember talking to the lead person there at the time, and I said, hey, when are we getting back to being in the top 100? And he said, Mr. LeBeau, we're never going back. We're never going to make it again. It's too late for this club. I said, well, why? Well, it's never going to happen. And because of Don and the work of other really good people, within a year, we were back in the top 100. And we didn't change the course dramatically. We changed our attitudes. We changed our focus. We invited people to come out. We accepted that we were not perfect in certain ways. We accepted that the weather in the Midwest is very unpredictable. So whenever that rater of the courses comes out, it may be a lousy day. And you know what? That's okay. We're dealing with it. But he's also going to see, or she is also going to see when they rate it, a beautiful design, and they're going to have a wonderful experience. And that's what we did. We accepted what we were and just said, look, we're not an oceanside course in San Diego that's perfect all year round. We're just not. But we achieved that. That was an achievement to be back in the top 100 out of all the courses in the nation. So it's great. Hey, Don, how would somebody be able to reach you regarding Haig Point?
Yeah, my email address is dhunter@haigpoint.com. And if they drop me a message, we do have rental cottages here that we can set people up on tours of Defusky Island and give them an opportunity to see the location. And I'd be happy to talk to people about how that's done.
Well, you deserve anybody that has an interest in it, including me. I have an interest. I think it's phenomenal. Anything you'd like to end as a message to people as they look at the differentiation of what they represent, what they offer from your history, from your successes that you can share with us?
You know, I think a couple of things that I've learned over time through mentors like you and others. You know, it's easy to avoid tough conversations. It's easy to avoid certain employees, certain attitudes that people might have. And really, that, in my view, that's the stumbling block that most leaders have, is just trying to avoid confrontation. Confrontation is something that people choose to do. You can face things as a leader without being confrontational. You can face a confrontational person without becoming confrontational. The fact that you face things head on in a timely manner is the difference between moving ahead or staying behind. And I think if you know what's different about your brand or what should be different, you've got to be, if you're the leader, it's up to you to force conversations to happen, to force decisions to happen, and to do the tough things. And most of them are only emotional. And so over time, the older I get, the more in control of those emotions I've tried to become. You know, Barry, I think you remember some tough times where I called you and said, boy, I don't know why you made me the general manager. I don't know if I can emotionally do this. And you said, calm down. Let me help you through this. And you did. And I think that those life lessons are very important. And the sooner a young leader makes those decisions to just go forward, be kind, deal with the tough person, deal with the tough problem, I think the faster they'll become successful.
Well, Don, I want to thank you personally, but I think professionally you've done something great today. You have shown that leaders differentiate, and that's what you've done. So thank you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for being such a dear friend, a great partner in business together. You're somebody I love, respect, and admire. So thank you for being with us today on Difference Talks. And I want everyone to realize that what you heard today is the man himself. This is Don Hunter. And if we can help you in any way from this podcast, please take the ideas, take the learning, and make yourself that much happier, that much better. So until next time, Barry LeBove, thank you. Leaders differentiate.
Thank you for listening to Difference Talks, produced by the amazing team at LeBove. All original music on this podcast was created by LeBove.
Buy our book, The Power of Differentiation, on Amazon. Have a question for the Difference Talks team? Email us at differencetalks@lebove.com.